today we're talking about an absolute classic that is now available through way of a reimagining or a remake with Persona 3 Reload. It's out on all kinds of different systems through Xbox Game Pass, on Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, Windows PC, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and Steam. So there's no shortage of where you can check this game out. But SEGA reached out and asked if I want to do a sponsored video on it, and I said yes, because this is a game that I have a lot of fond memories of, as it's actually my entry point into the Persona franchise. So yeah, I was all over this one. I was going to be checking it out anyway, and in my mind, I still think this is a great entry point for anyone who is just interested in the Persona series, and I'm going to go over that here today. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. So first up, don't worry, I'm not looking to spoil anything major in this game, and in fact, any of the footage that you see here in this video is going to be from the first 10 hours or so of the game, which, if you played through Persona 3 at all, you know that's like just scratching the surface. And on top of that, if you're someone wondering if you can just jump into Persona 3, you see the 3 on the end, you figure, oh, okay, there's a couple other ones to check out. No, it's a self-contained story, so you indeed can have this as your entry point into the entire franchise. In fact, back in, I think it was like 2008 or 2009, when I first picked up the game, it came in like this box set with an art book, and it was after the PlayStation 3 was already out, but at that time, Persona 3 really stood out because it was this dark and mature RPG and really set itself apart from the pack that way, and it just left such an impression on me with some of the themes that they tackled and just some of the unique nature of the game. So I was excited to check this out, see what we're dealing with here for Persona 3 Reload. Persona 3 Reload starts off with the typical silent protagonist arriving at Tatsumi Port Island to attend school, only to find themselves in this weird place with coffins standing up in the middle of the street. After making your way to the dormitory, it's explained that this is what's known as the Dark Hour, a moment of time that occurs after midnight where only certain people are aware of what's happening, with enemies called shadows roaming around. A labyrinth called Tardus appears during this dark hour, and unraveling the mystery between the dueling realities is at the center of Persona 3 Reload, with your character joining a group tasked with doing just that. Visually speaking, the game looks great. There are obvious improvements to character models, and walking around each environment is a nice step up from something like Persona 3 Portable. The game is also extremely stylized and fun to look at in battles, pulling many cues from more recent entries in the Persona franchise. I also really like the menu transitions and animations, which might sound like a small thing, but it really comes together to make the game feel highly polished. All of this, by the way, is wrapped up nicely, looking sharp with a resolution of 4K running at 60 frames per second. Oh, and the music for Reload has been completely revamped, leaning more into a hip-hop arrangement, and after hearing the upbeat battle theme over and over when surprising an enemy, I think it really sets the tone well, but I will say this is certainly going to be up to each individual's taste, as I'm sure some will prefer the original soundtrack.
Tardus, you can handle it. I have to do this. Help me! That's an enemy down. Good job, Takiba. You're up next.
So dance. If you wanna go ahead, free to do whatever. I'm chilling on my bed. I'm in my biz, so mind your own biz. Whatever like is, we go with it.
Fantastic.
Yes.
The game is essentially split into two different parts. On one side, we have the social life that you lead as an average teenager, and then on the other side, you have the dungeon crawling battle aspect known as Tardus in the Dark Hour. During the day, you'll spend your time attending school, hanging out with friends, and just trying to live a teenage life. This brings up a ton of options for how you want to shape your character with the time given. For example, you may want to spend time with a new friend after school to build up your social link with them, or stop by the local arcade to improve one of your stats, or maybe buy some illegal weapons and armor from the police station. It all works together to build out an interesting role-playing element where you legitimately live a normal social life during the day to improve your fighting prowess at night. Oh, I should have paid better attention in class. Now the fate of the world hinges on if I can tell which one of these drawings is not an algebraic spiral. Who says all those math classes in college wouldn't be used in the real world? I got it wrong, by the way. See, these social links that you form around town will strengthen over time and are linked to different persona types that you use in Tardus. Build up a social link and you'll be able to create better personas with different bonuses. It's an interesting way to indirectly have both realities cross over during your playthrough, giving you reason to seek out new friends in the real world to build up power during the dark hour. Some of the activities are clever and may hit close to home for some, with many of the typical teenage tropes being recognized, whether it's a classmate trying to ask out a teacher or making a close friend in the virtual world of an MMORPG. I don't want to spoil too much here, but the side stories with different characters are a lot of fun to see through, so I recommend doing as many as you can, as this is probably the strength of the entire game, whereas Tardus hasn't exactly been as celebrated over the years. And while I do think the social aspect to Persona 3, telling all these different branching storylines with the day-to-day slice of life experience as a teenager going to school, when it does turn to nighttime and you're ready to experience the dark hour with Tardus, it certainly takes a turn towards the other big aspect of this game, and that comes down to the battle system and managing your personas. When you're back at the dorm, you can choose to go to Tardus. This will teleport you to a waiting room that will let you prepare for the road ahead. Tardus is, by all accounts, a typical dungeon crawling experience. Enemies will be roaming around, and when approached, a battle will kick off. You have the option to hit the enemies on the field or even be hit to gain advantage or lose advantage when that battle starts. Here we'll get the first look at the battle screen that is extremely stylized with the choice of using your persona or weapon to attack. These personas are the major point of the game for battle, as they will lend different elemental attacks such as fire, wind, ice. Use the right weakness against an enemy, you'll knock them down, giving your character one more shot, which can be stacked provided you keep exploiting weaknesses on the battlefield. If you knock down all enemies, you can trigger what's called an all-out attack, dealing heavy damage across the board. Persona 3 Reload did add a new feature called Shift that lets you pass your extra turn off to a party member, adding a slight wrinkle to strategy mid-battle. It's similar to the more recent baton pass introduced to the series in Persona 5. It's a pretty straightforward battle system at first, but as you climb higher in Tardus, there will be more and more enemies to learn, and the game shakes things up well enough with the boss battles. However, I can see why some may go through Tardus feeling a bit repetitive, as it is a lot of the same, going floor by floor to clear enemies. That said, I did find myself revisiting older floors that had chests I was unable to open at first, and the carrot on a stick of improving your characters and personas were enough to keep me engaged. There's also a bit more to do with breakable items laying around to provide rewards, and each major area at least changing in appearance, which, even as just an aesthetic change, did at least keep things looking different as I went along. Now, speaking of personas, with those social links I mentioned earlier, strengthening in the real world, you will have the ability to create and combine personas in the Velvet Room. Winning battles will at times give you the opportunity to pick a persona, or you can summon one while paying a fee. Once you have a few, you can go through a menu and choose to fuse them to make stronger ones. Inheriting skills from previous forms works to make each fusion a bit different and have you pushing to find the best combination for your group. See, the big thing with your character is the ability to harbor multiple personas and switch between them in battle, so building up and creating a diverse party is crucial for your trip up Tardus, especially later on. But overall, after my roughly 25 hours or so into Persona 3 Reload, I do think this is the best possible way to experience Persona 3 with all the different improvements that they've made across the board. And yeah, I think it's a great place for someone to start if they've just been kind of curious around the Persona franchise. This is a game that is just in Game Pass, again, available right now. I think it's a great spot to maybe try it out and see what you think from there. But yeah, highly recommend Persona 3 and Persona 3 Reload. And let me know what you guys think about this one down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.